다 처음에 뒤 생일에 차지 깐한다. 생일 도나르다야. 생일 민도네 차지 깐와요. 나서 다 예리야 현재 나이. Vindrajire gyobani sene tensali she domdre soande dedan denge duma tamje bayon senge shile josen tome meba kombe vision tebe pare sendre soande Sonamande dom Anye brazo dresovande Chedan raji kanamade chedan Dame dembe de bagayin ba chungling nye ne prase chene Yanda sula nye be du shuji tenla nye brazo dresovande Chedan raji kanamade chedan dambe cheso jebana Vindrajire gyobani sene tensali she domdre soande dedan denge duma tamje bayon senge shile josen tome meba kombe vision tebe pare sendre soande sende chanjuro yembe se samembra ni nerado Chelo seba cheve namdaraji kume jemba dendere sovan Chambe loji niji donjo tanjawa meba engi jonambrata Tome gyoda jela da gyoshi meda ngebra sindre sovan Nyelongelo geji medon shi kade shaya nyembu chelenchi Keve nganzu sambo medon ve shinyin penze gandre soan So zora dena nyamjane Rangi sosura jebe shiragi Jero jezo jobra mejeba Ngedin tambra jete soan Chembro chala zishi jiji Loi mena daba namje sanjirane Gela jove lodre gevede Nyosong ora zede soan Tedra yende jele ge kanto yende shi ju bi lu si de de ba ga ma ba ye gong ba zong ji xiu 我三界觉当所业上那么罗成就帮助大内耶稣大概军业一边是那么严重了本三界主不了修三界觉当所业上那么成就帮助大内耶稣 大概军业一边是那么严重了本三界主不了修三界觉当所业上那么 成就报道大内耶稣，大概军业一边是那么严重了本，三界主不了修，常在往南去见下巴，解说业障归心社会，给我众生大概解撒把他接当。 成就节目，所系必须就系面多，日热为灵心念的根本，三界心对没得不爱，如果能到心来绝不来说，圣贤能解三八，落叶接着接到。 是中的梦的把一切给光了光都说。这个这帮人把这个。 当初别当了，我觉得他们真正的下了，他们没讲不了，就是说了啥子吧。上一说了那些，因为原本这个年纪，他们真正的些，看到就觉得问题在哪里，就那么什么啥子嘛，因为这些嘛，也你们都知道的。那也跟他们也中那边跟他当中，估计就是把他们这些给都大概觉得都。 sen bizi ise gerine bu geleceğin hocamacım biz onu işi yazı dinleme tutacağım cevap 차제로 감사합니다. 미리다베서 니는 일루르지만 대신 구신지부 등자바인 제라마 유에 제라한데 시작하는 여러 경우로 예제외로 제라나 야외된 바근에 선자바가 유름 보실라 자서 바다로 정하고 소라마 그 경우로 이제 是要跟你接不拢，就学校没这那就跟这面都是讲啊，这本地啥那么多其他的，直接看，就是那么就双方的双方工作就能，提出去了那么员工，那么有多些小了这样子咯，本地啥那么多就大概就不别没得说了，跟人是没有关系说的，不送托运我都在哦。да, 아주 다들 잘함터니 세신베게 아주 캠보게신이나 바래 다나시
I'd like to offer all the Kempos and teachers and who are listening over the internet, as well as in particular all of the nuns who are at the different nunneries, as well as the monks from particular Shedra students from monasteries, and everyone else who's listening to this broadcast who have faith and devotion. I would like to offer you my welcomes before I begin the teaching. So today, the point we have come to our teaching is the second of the three main sections of the good deeds, the section called The Nature of the Biography. And so the other day I just talked about these first two major sections. So the second of these two is the nature of the nature of the biography. When we talk about the nature of the biography, this has two different parts. The first of these two parts is the preliminaries, how to enter the Dharma. And the second is the main part, how he practiced the paths of the three types of individuals. And of these two, first, the preliminaries, how to enter the Dharma. This is the point where we're at now. And this has, in terms of its subdivisions, it has 6 different points. And so to introduce what these different points are, the first is the meaningful deed of a supreme Nirmanakaya. The second is abandoning the impediment to Dharma negative friends. The third is the favorable condition following great spiritual friends. The fourth is abandoning meaningless distractions. The fifth is giving up on this life because impermanence has taken root in his being. And the sixth is going for refuge to the undeceiving 3 jewels. So these are the 6 points. And so the first of these is the meaningful deed of a supreme Nirmanakaya. So this meaningful deed of the Supreme Nirmanakaya, if we talk about the root text first, reads, once I had gained a human life with leisures and resources, I dared not squander it pointlessly with single-minded focus. I did all I could to practice Dharma, just as the Buddha taught. I subjugated forcefully any wrong thought that arose. I think of this as one of my good deeds. So those are that is the root verse. Now this stanza what this stanza teaches is how Mikyo Dorje took birth in a human body, how he entered the gate of the Buddha's teachings and took the vows, the Pratimoksha vows, the Bodhisattva vows, and the Tantric vows, and how he focused his actions of body, speech, and mind in order to practice virtue and give up misdeeds as the Buddha taught. And in this way, how he made his human life meaningful. And so in this text, the good deeds, there are 33 good deeds, and this is the first of these 33. So generally, in order to speak about how Mikyo Dorje took birth in a human body, first we need to understand what, or I would like to speak in general about the prophecy that was made by the 7th Karmapa Chudai. Generally, the 7th Karmapa Chudai had a pure vision that the gurus, Yidams and Dakinis, and in particular Ujjain Padmasambhava, made a prophecy that if he spent 3 years in retreat and did appropriate practices, he would be able to live to the age of 88. And so he went to Kampo, and in the year of the rat, 1505, he spent a few months in retreat. He did have plans to spend a long time in retreat, but the people of Kampo had a great desire to have an audience with him. And the monks in the encampment, since the Karmapa was spending a long time in retreat, and the Karmapa was in retreat, they were not receiving many offerings, and they were running out of food. And so they insisted he grant audiences on the new year of the tiger in 1506. So they made this request repeatedly. And at that time, Chuda Gyatso said, if you have a cow, or if you have a milk, you can have the milk of them, but instead, if you eat it, are you going to eat it? He's saying, so he said to him, are you choosing to eat the meat without milking the cow? And so this is what he said. And so anyways, he left his retreat on the 7th day of the first month of the tiger year. And on the 14th day, there was a gathering of about 100,000 people from the area of Kongpo. And in that gathering, he said, what Chuda Gyatso said is that I have now dissolved my Nirmanakaya, and so now this is my Sambhogakaya form. And he put on a crown made of pearls and pearl jewelry, and wearing these, he granted an audience. The next morning, when the sun was just about to arise, without any illness at all, he passed away. Before he passed away, he left a testament that was a few stanzas long. I can't read the whole thing, but it says, I have no birth, but will display a birth, as it says. And so he left this testament of a few stanzas in length. Also, he wrote in scrolls, several scrolls, the place where he would be reborn, the names of his parents, and so forth. And he said, give this to Gyaltsab-tu, give this to Situ. And so he left in them, like he said, but they weren't envelopes, but he wrote down who the two were for, and he left them on his table. And so this is what is said. So now the Karmapa Mykya Dorje.
ane gyawang mi gyudo zidi da kuchungbe gi yu da chidang gi.
Now the region where Mykya Dorje was born, so generally, if we think about the names of I thought I should give you an introduction to the birthplaces and the dates and so forth of the first 6 Karmapa, so I haven't had time to prepare that. So since tomorrow is a day off, I will give that tomorrow. But I would like today to give a brief introduction to the birthplace of Mykya Dorje. This was in Upper Dokam, at a location near the monastic seat of Karma Monastery. In the valley where the 6th Karmapa Tongwanden was born, in Nomsagan. And so in that area, there's another valley called Kartipuk in that area. And within that, there was a village called Satam. And in that Satam, he had his father named Champa, which everyone in the area called him Dali. His mother was the granddaughter of a disciple of Karmapa Deshin Shakpa named Kachapa Namko Gyatsen, who was a great Mahasiddha. So she was his granddaughter. Her name was Dongsa Lama Dren. Now, there's a little bit of a debate about who Mikidorje's father was. And the reason for this is some people say that it was someone named Ser Chadaloi Champa. And then also in the autobiographies, it says Ajam. And so it's both. So in Mikidorje's autobiographical account of the past actions of Mikidorje, there's a text named that, and in this he said that his father was Ser Chadalo Champe Shinyen, who had received teachings on Mahamudra from the seventh Karmapa Chudai Gyatso. But it could be that he was just his biological son. But the father, his father, the head of the family who actually raised him, was Ajahn. And so there is a bit of debate about who his father actually was. And so on the 10th day of the 12th lunar month in the year of the female hare, there was like a spheres of light. And these fell onto the roof mouth, and they came in through the windows, and they made a big vows, and inside the house they stayed in there a long time. And it was as if like the sun was shining inside the house, and all the members of the family saw this. And so at that point, that is probably the time when Mikidorje entered his mother's womb. And so this is what his mother and father decided. Now, at that time, when someone enters the moment of conception isn't something you can test the way you can today. In any case, when he entered his mother's womb, she had many wondrous dreams, and there are many different signs. I cannot explain them all, and it's not necessary, but to give an example of them. When he entered his mother's womb, his mother had a dream that there is a mountain in front of their house, and in front of that there is a large plain. And it was covered with colorful flowers. In the middle of that, there was a really beautiful tent. And within inside of that tent, there are all sorts of statues and sacred texts and so forth, and many infinite varieties of offerings. And this is what she dreamed. And so then, inside and outside of the tent, there was like pieces of white conch that were like in the shape of stupas, and these fell in like a rain. And it was like around the mountain there was like a tent of rainbows, and there was like a turquoise-colored mist floating around. And around the tent, there are many different boys and girls adorned with jewels and carrying many ornaments. They're carrying symbols and various other offerings, and like they were dancing and singing and circumambulating the tent. And his mother also put herself many different bone ornaments and also danced. And so also, among all of the, and within the tent, among all of the offerings, there was a golden vajra. She dreamt that it was there, and she dreamed that she took it in her hand. And she also saw another woman who had glossy black locks, and she was wearing a white cotton clothes. She had a really beautiful, nice white conch, which is something like really, really beautiful white conch. And then the mother took the conch, and when she blew it, the sound of that conch was just so beautiful, and it lasted a really long time. And it was extremely loud. And so that's how it seemed to her in the dream. And then inside of the tent, there was a throne. And so she dreamt there was a throne, and then on that, And she had saw a monk on that. And the monk said to her, said, everyone in India and Tibet and everyone in Jambu has heard the sound of the conch that you blew. And so this is another, she had this feeling that's happened in her dream too. And outside of there were many people gathered. And she dreamed that the father, Ajam, was carrying a money praying wheel and leading everyone in singing the money melody. And so he began it, and then everyone else joined him in singing the Mani melody. And then the monk on the throne who had spoken to her earlier gave his mother a mala, and that has like the guru bead, or the knot that holds the knot closest, is made out of conch, and he gave it to her and said, "I'm giving this to you, so you recite manis with this." And so she had this appearance, and then once then she began to recite manis, and then immediately everyone around her gathered and joined her, and there was like this really clamoring sound of the manis. And so within that, she woke up. When she woke up, she still had the feeling that the mala that she had been given was still in her hand. And it still seemed to her that she could still hear the sound of many people outside reciting the 6-syllable Mani mantra. And so she had these feelings too. When that happened, it's like her body was like caressed or being enveloped by feelings of pleasure. And she felt great joy, she said. And so she had many amazing dreams like that one. So at that time, one thing I need to introduce to everyone, to all of you, is that when most of the Karmapas took birth, the parents and various other people had many different appearances. And one of these is that they're often related to white conch shells, like blowing a white conch or finding a white conch. And so these sort of signs often happen. And so this happened for most of the rebirths of the Karmapas. And so this seems to be, I think this is a particular sign that the Gyawan Karmapa is being reborn in that family and in that house. And so basically, in brief, from the time he entered the womb until he was born, so everywhere, inside and outside their home, there was always like the sound of the many people reading scriptures, or sort of like a rumbling sound of the 6 scriptures, and everyone around there in the family heard this. And when other people saw his mother, they often saw her like radiating lights of many colors. Or people would have like visions of the house being surrounded by flames on the outside. And so there are many such signs as that as well. Then one day, his mother went to gather firewood. Somebody said the word for firewood. I couldn't. The Tibetan word it's actually an old dialect word. And so we, in my own language, sometimes we would burn firewood. We wouldn't always burn wood, but sometimes we would have a type of wood called suru. So sometimes, excuse me. So actually, it was maybe not. Sometimes in my region, we'd go up onto the mountains, we'd gather bundles of grass and tie them together and use them as firewood. At any rate, his mother went to get this, and she got tired. And she lay down to rest for a bit. And once she'd lain down, And from within her belly, she heard a voice saying, "Don't just sit there. Keep going. It's going to hell." She heard the voice saying that. And she felt uncomfortable and thought, "Is that my dead sister?" So basically he said, "Don't sit there. It's going to hell. There's going to be a hailstorm." And she heard a very high and faint voice saying this. And his mother felt a little bit uncomfortable about that. So she thinks, "Is that my dead sister? Was she reborn as a ghost? And is that her saying that?" So she felt uncomfortable about that. And at that time, there was someone next to his mother. She said, "Did you say something to me? What did you say to me?" And when she said, "I didn't say anything, but it's someone's voice. It scared me." And so then they went home quick. And as soon as they got inside, a really big hailstorm started. And so there's also that story. Then one afternoon, it was like in the afternoons one day, his mother heard a really clear sound of Om Mani Padme Hum coming from her belly. And a nun who was nearby also heard it. And so this is another story that's told. And another strange story is one time, his father and mother got into a domestic argument. They got in a fight. And when they got in a fight, the father picked up we have like fry pans. He picked up the handle of a frying pan and he hit the mother with it. And everyone, then the sound came from the mother's stomach saying, "You don't need to do that to us, mother and child. We didn't do anything." So hear that sound. And everyone in the family heard that that voice clearly. So generally, for regular people, when a baby is in the womb, it can't speak. But whether this is like a miracle or an emanation, he was able to speak. And I think that's how it was. So at that time. And so at that point, he had to speak at those points. So he did it through an emanation. So these are all things that happened with his mother, now with his father. So one time, he went to go to load the harvest in the fields. And when he was coming back, he saw like just as if it's real, not like a dream, but just real. He saw in the middle of many people and many animals, pack animals. And among those, there was a person with a young white mule carrying a box. And the man himself was wearing all sorts of bone ornaments. And that person, and he had a bag with many sacred objects, and he opened that up, and they took out of that a black crown made of rainbow light. And he said, "I'm giving this to you." And he seemed to put it in the Harmon's hand, and then everyone disappeared. And when this situation, and he felt like it actually happened, when he got back home, he said, "I saw this sort of person." And I had a vision of him like giving this to me. I have no idea what happened. They all disappeared. And everyone said, "Oh, we must have met a ghost." And so they immediately started doing repulsion and other rituals. And so this is another story that happened. Not only that, even the neighboring villagers also had wondrous dreams, and this happened quite frequently. So in brief, so now the date of Miki Dorje's birth was the 4th day of the 11th lunar month, the female fair here. So this is probably in 1507, I think. And on that day, his mother gave birth to him without feeling any discomfort or any suffering at all. And as soon as when he immediately sat up and he wiped his face, he wiped his face from his head down to his face. He did this, wiped him stuff like that. Then he yawned a little bit, and he yawned a bit like that. And then said, but not very clearly, I'm the Karmapa, I am the Karmapa. He said this 2 or 3 times. And at that time, on that day when he was born, the sky was filled with rainbows, there's a rain of flowers, and a really nice scent of incense wafted. And in particular, from the roof of the house, there was like a rainbow that rose like in a column up into the middle of the sky. And his mother also gave off many scents for many days. Now, the day that Mikyo Dorje was born, and according to this is a man named Emperor Zhengde. In the old history, it's called Jingde. But his actual name is Zhengde. So the day of this emperor's coronation was the same day as Mikyo Dorje's birth. Now, this Ming emperor the reason why I have to say this now is that he was a little bit different than others. Because he said he was the incarnation of the Karma, or an emanation of the Karmapa. He said, I'm an emanation of the Karmapa. And this is described in the histories. And he said he was the emanation of the Karmapa. And he sent messengers bearing golden letters to invite Mikyo Dorje to China. And so there are a lot of history about that, but I'll speak about this the day after tomorrow. Now, these are not recorded in Tibetan, but there's a lot about it in Chinese. So I thought I'd kind of compile it all and explain it to you, and I thought that would turn out well. So basically, after he was born, in Mikyo Dorje's own account of his lives or his past actions, he says, because I said, Om Mani Padme Hum, Karmapa Karma, and A'ai, just because of that, some of the people gathered there said, this birth is the rebirth of the omniscient Karmapa Chudichatso. So, and that's what he said himself. So after he was born, many people just imagined it came without information. They came to see him. And so he was born in Ngom. So he came to Ngom, and there was a lot of rumors that the Karmapa had been reborn in Ngom. And this just naturally, that the fame of this naturally spread all over. Now, on the 13th day of the same month in which Mikyo Dorje was born, then Situ Tashi Paljor came to that same area. It was at the same time. When these two happened together, then the father named Ajar went to see Situ Rinpoche and said, oh, sir, he said, I have a really amazing baby has been born in my family. The baby himself says that he is the rebirth of Karmapa. He says it himself. So what is this? And when he asked this, then immediately, Situ Rinpoche had the prediction letter from the previous Karmapa. He immediately looked at it. And as he looked at it, he then asked questions. He asked, what are his parents' names? On the top of the house, or on the roof of the house, is there a pile of cypress wood? Is there a spring below it? And does the door of the house face to the house, or face to the east? And the father said, my name is Ajam. The mother is Lama Drin. And there is a pile of cypress on the roof, and there's a spring below, and the door does face east. And so the Siddha said, your names are not the same, but everything else is the same. Because according to the Testament, the father should be named Champa, and the mother should be named Lama Tso. That's what it's written. So these are just a little different. As I mentioned, as I mentioned before, there's a little bit of debate about the father's name, as I mentioned, right? So one says that the father was named Tsirchatalo Champashinian, and one was this Ajam. There are these two people who are said to be the fathers. They both have the name Cham in the same spelling in their names. But the names are not 100% the same. So perhaps. So I think it's probably was the Tsirchatalo. So basically the father's name is a little different. And since he was born in the first year, there's going to be a big obstacle to his life, or a bit of an obstacle to his life. So Karmasita Rinpoche said that he should be kept, this should be kept secret until the third lunar month of the year of the dragon. So Karmasita gave this and other instructions and advice: 7 sacred relic pills, a square cloth, like a tub of butter, a brick of tea, a handful of incense, both black and white mixed together. And so he gave all of these and he said, burn this incense and put these pills in his mouth. If he is a tulku, and if he's actually tulku, nothing is going to happen. If he isn't, if he's not the tulku, then there'll be a sign tomorrow. And so maybe one night, he might, it's possible that he might say a few things tonight. And if he does, just come back here again to see me again and tell me what I said. And so the father did as Siddha Rinpoche instructed him, burned the incense, put the sacred pills in his mouth, and said, they say you're the rebirth of birth. And Khyentse said he's giving this to you. And then the tulku at that point said, and when he said that, then, so these cloths, the gifts of cloths and stuff is just a little bit late. Emaho, do not have any doubt in me. I am called the Karmapa, he said. And he also said a few other verses, but the father didn't remember them. And so this is what they said. And then after this, then the Siddha Rinpoche sent a patron named Tsokye to examine the tulku. And when he was examining, there was many people gathered around. And at that place, Mika Dorje said the 6-syllable Mani mantra 7 times. There's another Ngomsa Gampa. The place was very close to a monastery, the Ngomsagang monastery. Now, this is founded by a Karma Kagyu student, but at that point, its lineage was in the Geluk lineage. Now, the monk said, we are not going to be partisan for the Gelukpa. The master of our monastery is the Karmapa. So tomorrow, let's get some tea, some butter, and everything together. Let's go to see Dali. So Dali, Ajahn was also called Dali, right? So go to where Dali's son, who's said to be the Karma, is. Let's go see who he is. So they went to see. Well, when they went, the tulku seemed like he was really happy. And he said very loud, he said the Mani mantra and the Ali Kali mantra and so forth. And everyone who was there said, it's amazing that a newborn baby like that can speak. We go for refuge. And so they felt faith. And then later, when he was maybe 3 months after that, the tulku had two tiny teeth. They were the size of the mustard seeds. So he had 2 of these tiny teeth. And the father touched them and he said, you've got these teeth. Are these new teeth? I think these must be monster teeth for eating your siblings, right? And that very same night, the two teeth disappeared. They just disappeared. And from that time, this is like a bad coincidence. And from that point, it's like his tongue was a little bit inflexible. And so from that later, his speech was a little bit uncomfortable. His tongue was not so flexible. And so this continued even later into his life. So in brief, the main point is that from the time he was born in immediately on, he spoke in verse, he spoke in prose, he identified monks and others from the past. He could tell the stories of people he'd never met before. He said mantras, including the Mano mantra. He sat cross-legged. And so he had many different expressions of his body, speech, and mind that everyone who saw them were just really believed. But I don't have time to relate them all now. So in brief, the Karmapa, so it's like undisputed to everyone. This is the Karmapa, and so for that reason. So in that region, the most powerful and the most wealthy area of that monastery, there were three different places. One was Ryoche, one was Florong, and one was Gyatdunpa. And so these were the three. And after a not so very long time, he was invited to the Ryoche monastery of Taplung Chitang and invited to Florong. And he received this invitation letter. And so when the Tulku was only 7 months old, he went to Ryoche. And so this is like a big major seat of the Taplung days, the Taplung subject. So he went to Ryoche. And at Ryoche at that time, the master that was Jigten Wangchuk. Now Jigten Wangchuk was extremely kind to Mikyo Dorje. At the beginning, he took care of him. And he gave him food and clothing and so forth. And this is one way that he showed him great kindness. And later, there were two tulkus, an eastern and a western. And at that point, then Ryoche Jigten Wangchuk gave unconditional support to Mikyo Dorje, the Eastern Tulku. And so you could say he was very kind to Mikyo Dorje, or that he had a very great connection to Mikyo Dorje. But in that, the past activities of Mikyo Dorje that he'd written, said that Jigten Wangchuk was actually a little bit violent. Actually, the reason is that every year he had like a big military gathering every year, and they'd have Buddhists, so they did many other violent activities. And because if he did that, even though he didn't really lose faith in Mikyo Dorje, but it's like he just said, I didn't have much. His faith didn't really get very strong, other than just saying, "I'll go for refuge." But when Mikyo Dorje was 1 year old, he had a dream that he went into a house made a house with many different stories. And so within that, and on the Ryoche Jigten Wangchuk was upstairs, and so we wondered, how is this? And we went up to see how it was. When he was upstairs in the middle of this, and so there was on a lotus and moon seed was the body of Avalokiteshvara, shining rays of light. And so when he woke up, when Mikyo Dorje woke up from this dream, he thought to himself, even though Ryoche Jigten Wangchuk, even at that time he had already passed away, but when he was alive, he'd engaged in a lot of war and a lot of and such activities. But the people where he was around, whether the Sakya or Geluk or Kagyu or Bompa, when he said Ryuchi Jigten Wanchu, felt faith in him as if he were Avalokiteshvara. They joined their hands between their forehead and heart and had that such faith for them. And so for that reason, and so I thought this is really, and at that point, he felt, oh, this is someone who could really take care of him. And so this happened when he was 31, when Mikyo Dorje was 31 years old, that he had this dream. This is when he was 31. And so when Mikyo Dorje was a baby and went to see Jigten Wanchuk, Jigten Wanchuk examined it and said, in the end, he said that you need to have there's no need to have any doubt that this is the Karmapa. And he said to the monks of Florompa, he said to please offer service well to the mother and child. And after that, and so at that point, then the community in Florompa, so he introduced the mother and the tulku to the community of Florompa. Then when he was 9 years old, or 9 months old, excuse me, when he was 9 months old, he was brought to, the tulku was brought to Florongzong. And from that time until he was 6 years old, the tulku sort of shuttled back and forth between Zongsar and Hlolong and Ryuche. So he went to various different places in these places. And it did many different ways he benefited me. And there are many different stories about this, but there's so many of them, and if I had to tell them all to you, you'd all get bored. So now let's take a break here, and then when we reconvene, I thought I would speak a little bit about the dispute between the tulkus from the east, dispute about the tulkus from the east and the west.